We were hiking in the mountains of Utah, and it was you, me, Triscuit, and Shadow. It was late afternoon in early spring, and the weather was so beautiful. It was chilly but sunny, and you and your brother and your sister were wearing the special custom-made Gore-Tex hiking onesies that the Outdoor Cat Research Society sent us, and we were walking along the trail, not really talking too much because for one thing, the scenery was so beautiful. With the snow at the higher parts of the mountain glinting in the afternoon sun, and the blackbirds flying high above. They were so excited to see the three of you because they knew that you were friendly cats who would never hurt them, but also because they loved to play a silly game with friendly kitties where they would fly down to the meadow and pick little flowers with their beaks and then try to bomb you guys and hit you with a flower. Well, it didn't hurt, of course. And they called the game Flower Power Hour, and you loved it. Now, Shadow made his own game of it, where he would listen really hard for a flower wafting through the air and then try to catch it with his paws. And he did. He caught so many of them. At one point, I realized that Shadow and Triscuit had fallen behind and we couldn't see them. We got kind of scared and you called out for them. Shadow, Triscuit, where are you? But then they suddenly came running up the trail. And do you know why they had stopped? Because Shadow asked Triscuit for help making something. And they came up to you, and Shadow said, Rosa, Queen Triscuit and I decided that you are officially the princess of the family. And a princess has to have a tiara. So we made you this. And Triscuit came over and gave you a little kiss on the cheek and placed on your head a perfect little tiara made of daisies, violets, and bluebells. You were so touched and so happy. You squeed, and you had never squeed before in your whole life. You gave Triscuit a big hug around your neck, and then you gave Shadow a big hug around his neck. You felt so loved and wanted, and you started to laugh and also cry just a little bit because you were so happy. But then suddenly you felt Shadow's muscles tighten up, and he pulled away and rose up on his hind legs and sniffed the air really intensely. Not having eyes, his other senses were super powerful. Shadow turned and said, Triscuit, do you smell it? And Triscuit said, you know what? I do. And I said, what do you guys smell? And Shadow said, snow. A lot of it. And it's coming this way. I said, well, I will never understand how you guys can do that. I mean, it's a perfectly sunny day, but I believe you. And I trust you. So let's get back to the car right now. And I scooped you up in my arms because we needed to move fast. And Shadow jumped on Triscuit's back because she has eyes and we'd be moving so fast that we didn't want him to take a tumble. And we started hightailing it back to the car. We didn't want to get caught in the middle of a spring blizzard. But we were about an hour from the car, so we really had to hustle. You were a little bit scared, but not a lot. Because, well, for one thing, I started singing some Air Supply songs, and Shadow was making us laugh by squeezing Triscuit's sides with his knees and making her fart a little bit, and then he'd yell, Afterburners! That'll get us to the car faster. And even Triscuit had to laugh at that. But I could see Shadow keep smelling the air with a worried look on his face. And soon the sky got really dark, and the air got really cold, and we knew that we weren't going to make it back to the car in time. Sure enough, it started to dump so much snow, and we ran even faster. And then you started to cry, and I said, it'll be okay, Rosalita. I'll protect you. But you said, no, my tiara fell off. And I assured you, while I huffed and puffed and sang all out of love, that we would make you a new tiara. But you said, no, I want that one. It was special. Triscuit gave it to me. I felt so bad, but there was nothing we could do. We had to find shelter from this storm, and fast. "Dad," cried Triscuit, "follow us. I see a cave up in those rocks." We scrambled up the rocks, and it was a little sketchy because they were starting to get covered in snow and they were getting really slippery. But we made it. And it wasn't a very big cave, maybe 5 feet high and 10 feet wide, and it went back about 30 feet, but it was the perfect place to hide from the storm. Shadow and Triscuit inspected the cave to make sure it was safe and clean, while you and I gathered some wood to make a fire. Our clothes and our fur was so wet and we were so cold, so we draped our wet clothes over our backpacks and set them in front of the fire. But the wind, oh, Rosalita, the wind was whipping into the cave. "I'm freezing," said Shadow, and Triscuit had a really good idea. She said, "Let's stack our canned camping food at the mouth of the cave to block the wind, and let's zip our sleeping bags together to make one big one that we can all snuggle in and get warm." Shadow looked at her funny and said, "That sure is a lot of stuff to bring on a day hike." And Triscuit said, "I know, it sure is lucky." And Shadow smirked and said, "It sure is a plot hole." But in any case, that's what we did. You and I got busy blocking the wind with all of our cans of camping food, the canned beans, the canned salmon, the canned popcorn, the canned s'mores, everything. And while we were doing that, Shadow and Triscuit got busy zipping all 4 of our sleeping bags together. And when they were done, we all jumped in and we were shivering so hard. But our giant sleeping bags soon got so toasty warm. And we all just snuggled together and we talked, and Triscuit talked about how she would find even better flowers and make you an even better tiara. And we were all so safe and so warm and so sleepy. And we all fell asleep with the sound of the wind and the storm raging outside our cave. In the morning, we woke up to find Triscuit and Shadow heating up cans of breakfast burritos, and we went to town on them. They were so delicious. The storm hadn't lasted too long, and there was only about a foot of snow on the ground, so we packed up our cave, climbed down the rocks, and started walking back to the car. But oh no, the snow had covered the trail. The mountain canyon was so twisty and turny, and we tried our best, but we were soon so lost. I assured you all that we'd be fine, but to be honest, I was a little nervous. I wasn't sure how we were going to find our way back. Suddenly, help arrived. And guess who it was? It was our friends, the blackbirds. They circled overhead and yelled, "Hey, you guys, you're going the wrong way to your car." And then you yelled up to them, "Can you show us the way?" And they said, "Of course, 'cause you guys are so nice, but your dad does not know the first thing about land navigation." And I yelled up, "Okay, haha, I know. Thank you for showing us the way." And another blackbird yelled down, "No, seriously, you're going in the exact opposite way. You must be from the city or something." And I said, "Yep, haha, I get it. Clueless city guy here," I said, "but we'd sure like to get back to our car." So the biggest blackbird said, "Just follow us." And they flew off in, pretty much the opposite direction. And we followed them, and they'd circle back because they are so fast. And they'd shout encouragement to you, Triscuit and Shadow, and then, yell some more jokes about how goofy your dad is. And then they'd head back in the direction we were supposed to head. And this continued for a little while until when they flew back over us again, they said, "We can see your car right over that hill there. We'll meet you there." And sure enough, we walked over that snowy hill, and there was our car. And the birds were sitting on the hood. We shook their wings and introduced ourselves to each of them, right proper. They were so sleek and beautiful up close. There was Sparkles and Jasper and Blaze, and the biggest one was named Starlight. We thanked them so much for helping us find our way back to our car. Shadow told them if they're ever in San Francisco, they should come visit and play with us again. But just as we were going to say our goodbyes, Starlight cleared her throat and said, speaking of playing games, I think one of you dropped this. And she walked over to you and held out her wings, and resting in them was your beautiful flower tiara. All four of us gasped in wonder as Starlight reached out and gently placed it right on your little head. You were so stunned and happy you couldn't even speak. A princess needs her crown, young kitten. We saw it sticking out of the snow as we were guiding you back to your car. And you said, thank you so much. And you gave her the biggest hug, causing her to squawk and laugh in surprise. Okay, you four, she said, have a safe trip home. And should we follow you back to the highway, Dad, or do you have GPS? And we laughed and laughed and drove back home, so safe and so snugly. The end. Did you like that story? Yeah. I wrote that for you. You're so safe and so snuggly.